think I'll go 70. We'll see. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't even think that's the max speed of this thing, because this bike was only at 82 volts. It goes up to 84.5 volts. So it wasn't at full charge. And I felt like this thing could still keep going. I went 66.5 miles per hour, which is absolutely insane. Hey, what's up guys, Tommy here, back again with another great video, and I know you guys love these, so today I'm doing an update on this e-bike build. A little over a week ago I made a video announcing that I was going to be building this bike for a friend of mine. You guys absolutely loved it. You had plenty of questions about this bike, which I'll be answering in today's video. I will also be going over what has been done to this bike so far and what still needs to be done to it so it can get on the road, and to the person who ordered all the parts for this bike and gave me the privilege to build it for them and make videos about it. So without further ado, if you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave a nice comment down below for the YouTube algorithm so more people can see great content like this and I can continue to make these videos. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so before we move into answering questions, let's start off with the e-bike build update, and then I'm going to tell you guys the bad news of what happened yesterday afternoon. So as you can see, this thing is very, very similar to my bike, but it has a few key differences that make this bike just a little bit better, just the 2.0 version of my bike. So first off, as you can see, it has the QS 205 motor. This is basically the smaller version of my motor, which is the QS 273 motor. This one weighs 15 pounds less, but will handle the power beautifully. And I can go basically the same speed or faster with this motor than I can with the bigger, heavier motor. So we have 15 pounds off of this bike, which is a big deal when it comes to, you know, e-bikes and motorcycles in general. Second thing that's a little bit different is these disc rotors. As you can see, they're red. They're not really different, but I think it looks cooler than the black disc rotors. That's just my opinion. I mean, they're cool looking. What else? As you can see, we also have these pedals on here. I just got these all on and all tightened up. I also had this 32-tooth chainring, or 38-tooth chainring, sorry, come this afternoon. And I put it on, and as you can see, the chain is nice and it's fairly tight, but I think this should work. I also have this chain tensioner right here, which is keeping the chain nice and tense. And what else is different on this bike? Yeah, there's really not a lot that's different on this bike. Just a few things that are going to make this bike perform very, very well. Also, the electronics are basically the exact same as mine. Saron 72 150 amp controller and the same 72 volt 40 amp hour 150 amp battery that I have on my bike. And yeah, so that's this bike so far. It is basically done. I just need to do a few more things to it, which is basically cutting down this kickstand a little bit because I think it's at kind of a bad angle. And then yeah, just a few more things. Now let's get into the bad news. Okay, so everything looks cool on this bike. So what's this bad news that I mentioned? Okay, so if we come over here and we turn on this LCD screen, as you can see on the screen, it displays Hall sensor error. Now this can only mean a few things. Either you didn't do your Hall sensor test, which I did, you don't have the Hall sensor plugged into the controller, which I have it plugged in, or one of your Hall sensor wires has came out or it has been snipped. Unfortunately, my motor cable has been snipped right where the motor cable comes out from the motor. All right, so what exactly happened? So first off, let me go back a bit. Yesterday I was riding this bike. It was working beautifully. Took it to its top speed. Put about 7 miles on this bike, and I got a little bit of footage of it. Took that footage to my computer and did some editing for this video. And I decided I wanted a little bit more footage. So before I went out and did another ride on this bike and got more footage, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and tighten all the bolts on it because I'd just thrown the thing together and I wanted to make sure that nothing was gonna, come loose or fall apart on me. So I did that, went front to back, and when it came to these bolts on the axle, what I did is I loosened them for whatever reason, and then I tightened them again. And everything seemed perfectly fine. So after I did that, I took the bike out of my yard. I took this picture, as you can see. So then I got on my bike, turned it on, twisted the throttle. Of course, it worked. Went about 20 feet, and then my screen displayed Hall sensor error, and the throttle gave me no response. So what I did is I stopped the bike, I turned it off, backtracked it all the way back into my room, and then I took a look at the motor cable because I immediately knew that there was probably something wrong with the motor cable. So I took a look down here, and what I immediately noticed is that this little spacer right here, spacing the motor from the swing arm, was off from the motor about a centimeter. So basically you can imagine that there was space in between this spacer and this black piece right here, which connects up to the motor. So I immediately knew that was off because this bolt was completely tight. So yeah, I looked at it for a little bit, and I figured that maybe the motor cable or something had gotten caught in between this little spacer and the motor. So I basically went ahead and I took the motor off of the bike and examined the damage. And as you can see in this video right here, the motor cable was torn up at the base. So yeah, it's torn up pretty bad. So that sort of gives me two options for what I can do with this motor in this bike. Option number one is I can take off this motor, maybe, and just maybe be able to fix it. It would be tedious work. I'd have to use a soldering iron, and it would probably take an hour or two, maybe even 3 hours of just soldering and getting everything taped up properly to hopefully get this motor working again. Or I can buy a new motor for it. Now, these motors aren't as expensive as you think. The whole motor kit for this thing was like $700, and that's including the motor, the wheel that's connected to the motor, as well as the controller, the brakes, and all the components that come with the controller. I know the controller costs $300. This front wheel, which is the same as the rear wheel, costs another $300. The components must cost like, I don't know, at least $30. So how much does this motor cost? I mean, in that whole description of what everything costs inside of that motor kit, I didn't leave much room for the cost of the motor. So I can only assume it costs like $100. I left a message for the manufacturer just asking about the price of the motor. I really don't expect it to cost very much. Also, shipping times are really quick. This motor kit took about 3 days to get from China to my house. So I could probably get a motor over here really quick for a really cheap price and then just swap it with this motor. And then in the meantime, I can give the person who I'm building this bike for this motor, make sure obviously that the motor cable doesn't get in the way and get snipped. They can use that, and then I can just replace the motor once I get the other one. So that's option number two. I'd have to spend some money, but at least it's not a lot of money. So yeah, that's a bummer. I really wanted to show you guys how this motor performs and everything, but unfortunately I probably won't be able to do that anytime soon, and I'll have to throw this motor onto this bike, which is a bummer, but crap happens. I mean, what are you going to do? Anyways, I'm going to answer some of your guys' questions to lighten up the mood. Okay, so sorry if I don't pronounce your profile names right. That happens. Anyways, Manuel asks, when is your next build video going to be? And my answer for that is very, very soon. I mean, this bike is already completely built. I have all of the footage I need for that, including a little bit of ride footage and some pictures of this bike completely built. And I already have it mostly edited. So probably next Sunday or the Sunday after that. So very, very soon. And yeah, it's going to be a good one. So yeah. This guy asked, how come this bike costs $4,000 when there's bikes on Alibaba that are the exact same thing that only cost $1,700? Well, there's a big reason behind that, and that's because Alibaba has a lot of hidden fees. For example, that bike probably once it gets to your house is going to cost you like $4,000, maybe even $5,000, and that's all hidden fees that weren't mentioned on the listing. Now, Also, that bike is probably going to have parts that aren't very favorable on it. Like maybe the battery's just going to be a big old fire hazard, or the controller is going to be not what you wanted it to be, or the build quality in general is just going to be bad. So you got to be careful with these Alibaba products, because there's a lot of hidden fees to these things, especially the ones that are listed for prices that are way too good to be true. Manuel, along with a lot of other people, ask if I can just make a really solid parts list for this thing. And the reason I haven't done that yet is I want to make a video about it. And I want to try to do that later on in the week, maybe around Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, so, you know, sometime later. But I'd like to make a video about it because I contacted the manufacturer directly for my motor kit and battery to get them for actually quite a bit cheaper than I could have, you know, on Amazon or eBay. And I want to show you guys exactly how I did it. I can't quite explain that or exactly how I did it, you know, on paper. So I want to make a video about that. But anyways, there's your answer. I'm going to try to do that as soon as I can. This guy asked, which bike is faster, the Enduro e-bike or the Saron? This bike all the way. The Saron goes like 45 miles per hour with a 90-pound rider down a hill. It's not really known for its speed and more of its comfort and off-roading ability, while this bike is a speed demon. Even if you're like a 250-pound fat ass, this thing will get you to like 60 miles per hour, no problem. And that was a joke. I'm not calling you a fat ass if you're 250 pounds. Scott Peter Rowan asked about the regenerative braking on these bikes, and I gotta say, it is absolutely fantastic. If you're going down a hill, you know, that's a decent slope, even if you're using quite a bit of power, you're probably gonna end up with just about the same amount of battery life as you did at the top of that hill, you know, at the bottom of the hill, because this regenerative braking truly does work very well. I did a regenerative braking test from the top of like this 3-mile long hill, and I went all the way down, you know, using minimal power, and I actually had more power at the bottom of the hill than I did at the top. So yes, the regenerative braking works very well. If you're going down a hill, you're probably not going to use any power out of your bike. Razan Brown asks, how heavy is it? About 160 to 170 pounds, depending on what you put on it. Long Fong asks, how do you change the display from kilometers per hour to miles per hour? It's actually very simple. So you turn on the display, you double press the M button, it'll bring you to this menu, and then you press minus and it'll go down all the way to system. You press the M button, it'll go to system, and then you can see unit system Imperial. Right now it's at Imperial. You can change it by pressing the down button. You can change it to metric. By pressing the plus button, you can change it to Imperial, back to Imperial. So yeah, that's how you can change all of your settings. It's actually quite simple. The Earth is Flat, Freemasons are Satanists ask, what is the charge time, top speed, and range of this bike? So charge time from a dead to full battery with the charger that was included with the battery, it takes about 8 hours, which honestly isn't that bad considering that it's a pretty big battery, and I usually only take the battery down to about, I don't know, 60% if I'm going on a ride. So it's really only about 3 hours typically, you know, if I wanted to go on a ride, charge it, and then go on another ride. But yeah, 8 hours. You can also upgrade the charger to a 10 amp charger, and then it would take about 4 hours, which I'd honestly say, you know, from your wall is pretty gosh darn good. Top speed, honestly, actually with this QS205 motor, this bike with the same electronics is faster than the bike with the QS273 motor. Perhaps it's the weight that makes it faster, you know, because it's 15 pounds less, or it's a more efficient motor. I'm not really completely sure, but I was able to go 61 miles per hour on this bike with this motor and 66.5 miles per hour on this bike with this motor, even though it wasn't even at full charge. So yeah, 66.5 miles per hour, and this bike gets me about 45 miles of range, and that's riding pretty fast. So this guy asks, is the Enduro fit for tall riders? I'd say absolutely yes. I mean, I'm a fairly tall person with shoes. I'm a little over 6'2". And I mean, I ride the Sarons. They're really small bikes, pretty much the size of like a 110cc pit bike. And I mean, I don't know, I'll find anything comfortable. I'd say once you get to like, I don't know, maybe 6'4" or 6'5", you might end up doing some modifications on this bike to make it a bit more fit for your height, like maybe getting some seat extenders. But anybody under like 6'4", you know, if you're like 6'3" and below, you're going to find this bike fairly comfortable. So yeah. This kid I met at the basketball court asked, can you meet at the courts right now? Yes, and I'm going to beat you 100-2 in a game of 1v1. Anyways, guys, if I answered any of your questions, that's great. If you enjoyed this video and you have any other questions, make sure to go ahead and leave those comments down below. Anyways, I'm going to be making more videos. I'm always here, so make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave a nice comment down below, like I just said. And I'll see you guys in the next one.